everybody, welcome back to an episode of the 3 Count. I'm War Machine MJ, and I apologize for the brief hiatus. I was not feeling too well. I had a summer cold, and I was pretty exhausted, and I just came in, didn't feel like recording, so my apologies. I know I missed a week's worth of content, but you don't have to worry because I'm not retracing them. I'm not doing 3 Count and Elite Count Supers, so we're just gonna play ball as per usual for this week. But once again, I'm War Machine MJ. You see my titles, and welcome to the 3 Count Monday Night Raw edition. Of course, this is the Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania Backlash. So let's just go ahead and dive on into the shallow end. We kicked off the show with They the Ones, They the Bloodline. Of course, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Usos, the Special Counsel Paul Heyman, and the WWE/Universal Champion Roman, the Tribal Chief Reigns. Paul Heyman gives his grandiose introduction, and Roman Reigns gets out, "Acknowledge me." Greensboro, North Carolina, "Acknowledge me," when a couple of seconds later, both the Usos are laid out with RKOs out of nowhere by RK Bro. And then Riddle and Orton are just kind of jockeying around the ring, sort of half circling around Roman, when McIntyre's music hits and he starts making his way towards the ring. Of course, RK Bro bail out of the ring, basically telling McIntyre he's all yours. McIntyre gets on the apron and Roman's, telling him to go away. McIntyre drops the sword, hops in the ring, and a big-ass brawl breaks out between the Bloodline and RK Bro with Drew McIntyre, because there's that big 6-man at WrestleMania Backlash. Come back from commercial, and there's an earlier from today footage where Ezekiel is introducing himself to the Street Profits. And of course they're interrupted by Alpha Academy. My bad, that was a genuine slip of the tongue. And Kevin Owens. So Kevin Owens, he's still on this mission to prove that Ezekiel is not who he says he is, and that leads to a 6-man tag, which the notes right here refer to Ezekiel as Ezekiel Jackson. So yeah, Big Rick. Shout out if you get that reference. Anyway, it's Alpha Academy and Kevin Owens taking on the Street Profits and Ezekiel. Of course, this was, just a great match. All 6 of these men are ridiculously good, especially Ezekiel. But the finish came when everybody is laid out on the outside except for Ezekiel and Chad Gable, who were the legal men. Chad Gable distracts the referee, and as Ezekiel is coming off the ropes, Kevin Owens grabs his foot, long enough to distract Ezekiel, and then he just turns and walks up the ramp. Ezekiel, distracted by this, walks right into a roll-up from Chad Gable, and the heels get the dub. And Alpha Academy is celebrating. Kevin Owens is kind of just stewing. So, yeah. Next, we had a backstage segment where AJ Styles is interviewed, and the meat and potatoes of this whole thing is AJ Styles is going to have a match later on in the night against Damian Priest, and if he beats Damian Priest, Priest is barred from the ringside at WrestleMania Backlash, between Edge and AJ Styles. Next, there was a recap of what happened last week with Sonya's abuse of power in her title match against Bianca Belair. And we cut to this week, and Adam Pearce is informed Sonya Deville that upper management is looking into her abuse of power last week and the 2 weeks prior when she booked herself into a title match, which my only needle into that story bit is, okay, why are they just now investigating her abuse of power despite that whole back and forth between her and Naomi? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's why they don't put me on the continuity team. Anyway, Pierce then tells her that the officials want to see Sonya Deville compete, and Pierce told her that he put her in a six-woman tag, where she'll team up with Rhea Ripley and big-time Becky Lynch, the man, my future ex-wife, against Liv Morgan, the returning Asuka, and Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair. And Sonya Deville is, okay, I'm game, but let's make it no holds barred. And Pierce says there is no we. You're competing, not as a member of management. You know, no executive power. Next we had Veer Mahan destroying some poor jobber named Bert Hansen. That's all. Well, before the match, Bert is interviewed by Byron Saxton, and he basically gives his whole spiel about how he worked at the barbecue joint, you know, around the corner, and, you know, he's been looking for his opportunity to break into WWE. Byron Saxton thanks him for his time, and 86 is out of there before Veer annihilates this poor dude. Okay. Of course, after the match, Veer continues to annihilate Bert. So that's all. That's all. Next was Damian Priest versus AJ Styles. Pretty decent match. AJ gets the victory over Damian Priest with a roll-up. Damian Priest is barred from ringside at Backlash, and Edge rushes the ring, and he and Damian Priest beat down AJ Styles and continue to wail on the injured shoulder. And Edge is looking to, well, once again, land another concerto on AJ Styles when he's saved by my boy, Finn Balor. Finn Balor makes the save, and AJ and Finn stand tall when they too sweet each other. Now, if you know history like I do, both these men at one point in time were the leaders of a very infamous, I can't do the WWE thing. They were both the leaders of Bullet Club. Bullet Club for life. Of course, Finn Balor was the founder, going by Prince Devitt at that point, and AJ Styles was the man that replaced him when Devitt left New Japan. So, yeah. Made me so psyched to see them two sweet each other. Because, you know, Bullet Club, it's my group, even though they're not as good as they are. House of Torture is still trash, though. Just saying. Anyway, next we had another backstage segment, this time between MVP and Omos, when their plotting and planning for WrestleMania Backlash is interrupted by Cedric Alexander. Now, of course, Cedric Alexander was one-third of the former I'm sorry, 1/4 of the former Hurt Business, of course, alongside the almighty Bob Lashley, the gold standard Shelton Benjamin, and of course MVP. Um, Cedric is reminding MVP of the time all four of them rode together, and he realized that Hurt Business could have been a lot more if it wasn't for Bob Lashley and his ego. And MVP is like, I appreciate you, realizing this. I also appreciate you bringing it to me, but as you can see, I've moved on to bigger and better things. So whatever you're pitching, I'm not interested. Then Cedric goes on to say, Shelton's not here tonight, and I've booked a match against the almighty Bob Lashley. MVP goes, okay, now you have my interest. You handle your business out there against Bob Lashley, and the two of us may see to it that we watch your match. Now, if you'll excuse us, we're still plotting and planning on how to destroy Bob Lashley. Cedric starts to say something and then almost tells him it's time for you to move on. And Cedric moves on. As almost an MVP go back to the gesture of tearing apart. We come back from commercial and we get a Miz TV segment where the Miz spends a good 5 minutes disrespecting Mustafa Ali, cutting his music before he hits the ring, giving him a mic that doesn't work, and constantly referring to him as Moose. And Miz then, makes a point saying, I'm disrespecting you the same way you disrespected me by interrupting Miz TV last week. And if you don't like it, don't go to Twitter and complain. Ali snatches the mic from Miz and he says the only thing I've got to complain about is you still being here. And then he says, well, when I get upset, I go to fans, and he then raises the mic to the fans, and he goes, because they matter. While Miz, goes and bellyaches to management. They're both jaw-jacking, and then Theory makes his way to the ring. Yeah, basically, long and short of it, because it's more talking. Theory says, I'm not going to hand you a title match. Ali's like, alright, I don't want it to be handed to me. I want to earn it. Then Theory says, well, I spoke to Vince McMahon and I've made a championship contender match. Because it will be you taking on me and The Miz in a handicap match. 2-on-1. And it starts now. Come back from commercial. Yeah, it's basically Theory and Miz doing their best to keep Ali down, and Ali doing his damnedest to get the victory. But Miz blind tags himself in without Ali noticing, and drops him with a skull-crushing finale. Exactly how you expect it to go. Miz and Theory are, going up the ramp while Ali is, bewildered. Then Ali is jumped by Ciampa. And Ciampa then stands tall over Ali, which, same thing he did last week. And speaking of Ciampa, he's the most recent subject of a name change. Because, they dropped the Tommaso. Because that's his real name. Apparently that's the whole new policy of name changes, is they'll change your name if it's something related to your shoot name. Like Walter has been changed to Gunther. Alright, I threw up a little. because Walter is his actual name. So, but them just dropping it to Tommaso, or them dropping it to Ciampa, I'm good. Especially since he's a heel. You know, it's kind of, you know, with him being a heel, it's that, you know, it's that one word name that just kind of strikes fear. It's just like, and your opponent, Ciampa, you know. Also, whether he's a heel or a face, it works in the, oh, there's some dude named Ciampa? I gotta check this out, you know. It's a name that just kind of draws attention. Next, we have some backstage 24/7 shenanigans, which, long of the short of it, Nikki ASH rolls up Dana Brooke to become the new champ. And that leads into a match between Nikki and Dana. Now, the reason why I'm going over this is because it come into play a little later on. So, we had a 24/7 title match where, you know, 24/7 rules have been held in abeyance until the end of the match. Long and short of it, Dana Brooke pins Nikki ASH to get the title back. Whole lot of shenanigans ensue. While, you know, the whole mob runs up the ringway. Nikki is still in the ring, you know, distraught. Let's see. Okay, all right. Sorry, there was a lot of recap packages in this episode. Next, we had the Seth freaking Rollins Appreciation Night, because last week was 20 years of Randy Orton. So, next was Seth Rollins Appreciation Night, where, you know, Seth starts putting himself over, calling himself a visionary, a revolutionary, a global global sex icon, which that popped me. You know, he puts himself over, and then the crowd starts booing him and starts chanting for Cody, and that frazzles him. He loses face and starts freaking out. And while he's freaking out, Cody comes out. And they're jaw-jacking, and Cody gives his side of the story. He says, you know, since I've come back, I've tried to be a gentleman. I've tried to be, tried to be professional. But Seth, you're very unprofessional. I'm paraphrasing. Then Seth goes on a tear saying that back in the day, Dusty Rhodes was never WWE champion because he was full of himself, and, you know, long and short of it, he wasn't, you know, good enough. And Cody, you're back here because you're not good enough. And as long as Seth Rollins is here, you're not good enough. And then, they start scrapping, and Cody gets the better of Rollins, even, you know, taking his grandma's tablecloth ass jacket and pitches it into the crowd. Next, we had Bob Lashley taking on Cedric Alexander. Not much of a match. Bob Lashley puts away Cedric Alexander with, you know, little trouble, as Omos and MVP look on from the stage. More video packages. Next, there was a backstage segment where Liv Morgan is interviewed, and she was basically asked why did she sneak attack Rhea Ripley last week, and she said, well, that's what Rhea Ripley did. And, you know, we were gelling as a team, and then we lose, and Rhea blames it on me, says she's disappointed with me, but in turn, she's actually disappointed with herself, and, you know, she's going to beat Rhea, and watch her, because that's her whole thing. Watch me. Rhea and Liv are going to have a really good feud and a really good match against each other, but after this thing is over, Liv's going to go back to doing absolutely nothing. And if she does do something, it's of little consequence. Next we had the setup for the 6-woman tag to close out the show. But before we do that, there was a backstage segment involving more 24/7 shenanigans. But the end of it, because you know it was a hallway thing and all that, at the tail end of it, there was Nikki ASH sitting on a road case, just distraught. When Dewdrop rocks up and she says, if you're done playing around, ask her if she's done playing around and if she's ready to take things seriously. Nikki says yes, and they end the segment. So big things are afoot between these two beautiful Scottish ladies. Then we get to the 6-woman tag. This was a hell of a match. All 6 women showing what they could do in there. But at the end of the day, Liv Morgan got the victory over Sonya Deville with Oblivion. And yeah, good for Liv Morgan. She got the victory in the main event of Raw. Good for her. It's going to be the last major thing she does in a while. So I don't mean to keep ragging on Liv Morgan, but it's just. But it's just any time they've got big plans for Liv Morgan, she just kind of falls by the wayside. And I like Liv Morgan. Like, she's the only member of the Riot Squad still standing in WWE. They had a whole documentary on her that resulted in absolutely nothing. They repackaged her. They had that whole makeover, vignettes, most notably where she took a bath. They were going to repackage her as, honestly, I don't know why it's lost on me, just to throw her away in the middle of that god-awful Bob Lashley, Lana, and Rusev feud. And, every time they do something substantial with Liv Morgan, they just kind of ball her up like a piece of paper and throw her by the trash can, not even in the trash can. Not like Liv. Just kind of wish they would do something actual, substantial. Something I can get invested in. So, yeah. That is the Raw before WrestleMania Backlash. So, yeah. That being said, I'm War Machine MJ. You see my titles. And I'll see you guys next time.